Welcome back to the podcast, the Thriving Intuitive podcast. Thank you for being here. I have a special guest sharing with us about the astrology energy in the 2022 forecast. Magic Kathy. Thanks for being here, Kathy.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to shine a light on what's next, because I guess that's the most asked question that I received, that a lot of people receive or have on their mind, right? It was the question after 2020. Everyone was like, is 2021 going to be better? And now everyone is like, is 2022, when is it ever going
when
to
is it going to be better?
Oh.
I know. And I remember last year talking with you, and it wasn't even a question in my mind. I was just like, I need to connect with her. And you were on the podcast when it was called Return to Calm. And we talked about that. We talked about the energy of 2020 and 2021. And I really felt it very impactful and important. And recently, this is the reason why I reached out to you again to do this, is I was talking about, oh yeah, Magic Kathy said that 2021 is all about the hard work and we still have to put in that work spiritually. And she was like, what's the 2022? I'm like, I don't know. Let's ask Kathy. So I'm really excited to have you here. Before we do that, I just want to make sure I introduce you to everybody. And so just give me a second. I'm going to find you on Instagram so I can read to them about you and tell them your handle so they can follow you. Okay, so your handle on Instagram is at magic_Kathy with a K, KATHI_official, because you are officially you. No copycats here. I love it.
That's true.
Oh my gosh. So she is a soul contract channel and astrologist and psychic. She is currently in Dubai and loves to travel. We were just talking about that before we hit record, all of the different connections of the Sagittarius. And she's guiding you towards your limitless self. She also is active in DNA activation and can read your human design chart, which I love. I'm still really into human design charts and reading those too. And the quantum field. So definitely go follow her. She shares updates all the time about what's going on. And I think they're so deep and they're so insightful. So thank you for those posts, Kathy.
Yeah, thank you for, sharing them, appreciating them. It's just fascinating to me. I love astrology, and astrology has been my anchor in the craziness of the world. And at some point I realized that I might have some gift of understanding the language of the stars in a way where people get the context, right, and know what's going on. And for me, it keeps me sane to know, okay, we are right on track when it comes from from the universal perspective, but then it also keeps others really, really anchored despite the chaos. And I think one of the things that I love most about even me having those posts and those forecasts is the feedback from so many, that they resonate with it and they feel less alone. And I think that's the most valuable thing. And it's funny because I started them officially like every single week, no break. I've been doing them since January 2020. And it's funny to think of the timeline because that's exactly when everything kind of started, right? The Saturn Pluto conjunction. And for some reason, something inside of me was like, you need to start doing something like that. And ever since, I've been like connecting with so many people all over the world, and they've connected with each other and they resonate with, oh my gosh, that's going on in my life, but then at the same time it makes so much sense. So it's astrology just keeps confirming itself, and I love it. It's just
That's so true. We were talking about that right before we hit record. It's like I was resonating and sharing with you about my chart. And it's funny because, you don't want to be labeled and put in a box with what you are. But at the same time, astrology confirms like what you're working on, what your patterns are. You were talking about like immediately you knew, oh my gosh, yeah, you don't really travel now because your South Node is in Sagittarius, because you've already traveled the world and the intercultures and the confirmation. And it's just a beautiful system that is not at all like a lot of people fear it. I don't think any of my audience Thriving Intuitives do fear it, but some people fear it because it's like, oh, it's like the occult or it's dark. But I always remind people that are kind of raised in the church and everything outside the Bible is kind of shunned, is the wise men. I truly believe the wise men were astrologers. They were following a star to find a baby. Like to be quite honest. That's what my belief is, you know, and they would say, oh no, they're
Absolutely.
just wise men, but astrology does give us that deep wisdom. So,
Absolutely.
right? Do you agree? What do you think? Do you think the wise men were
I
astrologers?
believe every single powerful person on this planet follows astrology, because kings and queens used astrology. I mean, it's even in the Bible, like they've all looked up in the sky in order to understand, or to, understand the energy, right? And understand, okay, this is where we go from here on, right? And also in order to understand what's going on in the collective, because we are the embodiment of those celestial energies. We have that in our DNA. That's always what I say when I say DNA activation or soul contract. It's written in your DNA. We just forgot about it. And that's why those transits, you know, some transits affect you and some transits don't, right? Well, because some transits trigger your birth chart. And why is that? Because the energy of that planet triggers something in your DNA, and then you have something going on in your life. And so it's actually really fascinating when you think about it on a scientific level, or on like a DNA level, which I'm also like, I love science, and I love to bridge the gap between science and spirituality, because astrology is in this box of spirituality, right? But really it's a science as well. And that's just what I love.
That's so true. It is. It's that unrecognized science. Yeah, absolutely. And so let's dive into the 2022. We have a few footnotes here. Do we want to cover the North Node changing first? As far as the collective, you were mentioning collective. I think it'd be really great to talk about the collective destiny.
Yes.
Currently, we're in Gemini, and everyone that's come to me to ask me for their human design reading or their North Node reading have 90% have been Gemini, you know, in their North Node, because it's so activated. We're like really like intensely wanting to fulfill our life's purpose, because whenever your North Node is in return, that pull is so strong. So share with us what's going to happen with the North Node changing.
That's interesting. It might also be because you have a North Node in Gemini that you attract those people. Because I mean, from like the readings that I have not only, attracted people with the North Node in Gemini in their chart, but obviously collectively we had the North Node in Gemini and the South Node in Sag. And I think, again, astrology confirmed itself, right? Because what is the South Node in Sag? We have to move away from long distance traveling. We have to let go of so many belief systems. We have to heal so many also belief systems inside of ourselves, not just in relationship to society, right, and the collective, but how the world works, but then also how we see ourselves, like our self-image. Because I mean, one thing that is going on and will still continue is Uranus and Taurus shaking up our value system. And whenever you shake up your value system, you have to reevaluate my belief system, right? It's all connected. And so what we will move into now, and I'm not negative Nancy here, and I know it's probably not something that a lot of people want to hear, but South Node in Scorpio, North Node in Taurus. South Node in Scorpio is not necessarily an easy roller coaster ride, I want to say so, because it means that we have to move away and move past and let go of a lot of shadows, which then ultimately means we have to see the shadows first. So we can expect a lot of even more shadows. I know we think that, we've already uncovered a lot of shadows. Nope, there will be more shadows to uncover. And again, I speak in collective terms, but that also always means in your personal life, you will address even more shadows. And I know we think we have done so much shadow work the last 2 weeks, like 2 years. How can we continue? There will be more and more and more. And it will be a lot of, also on a collective level, power struggles. That's also Scorpio, right? The shadow is manipulation, power struggles. Scorpio, we have also to see. And that's actually, it is an interesting thing to ponder on, because Scorpio rules injections as well. And so the South Node there could mean that in the next 2 years or 18 months more so, that's how long the nodes will be in Taurus and Scorpio, that there will be something about us moving past the vaccine, for example, however that may mean. But I think people will get more conscious about what that really means to inject something into your body. And then the North Node in Taurus is really asking us to reconnect to our body, the physical body, right? Health, wellness, pleasure. Again, also in the same time with Uranus there, obviously too. What are my values, right? How do I take care of myself? How can I save myself? How can I make sure that my survival is secured, right? That's all Taurus. And at the same time, how can I be here on this planet and have the most pleasurable experience? So I think a lot of people, that's also the balance that we always want to strive with any polarity in astrology, from like the shadow work, what can really help us the next 18 months will be all about pleasure, like connecting to pleasure, because I feel like we've almost forgotten that since 2020. Like, what is pleasure? And when I say pleasure, it's the simple pleasures too, right? It's buying yourself a bunch of flowers and smelling them, reconnecting to nature, reconnecting to basics, really, not to be so obsessed Scorpio about things, right? To let go and just really focus on very narrow, mundane things, so to speak, right? Listening to a song, poetry, going to an art gallery, just going outside and watch the sunset instead of obsessing in your room about the last shadow piece that you still need to dissolve. To find that balance, I think, can be really helpful. And obviously, whenever the nodes shift, we also have new rulers of the nodes, right? So the rulers of the nodes are the planets that are ruled by the signs the nodes are in. So right now, Gemini North Node means Mercury was our ruler. So it was very important to see, okay, what is Mercury doing, right? So all the retrogrades were very important. Any Mercury movement was important. And the South Node in Sag, the Jupiter movements were also really important for us to see and to observe. And now that will obviously shift. The North Node in Taurus means Venus will become the ruler of our destiny. And that in itself also tells us, like, connecting to our own self-worth, right? To love, ultimately. And I love that too, because 2022 is, in numerology speaking, a year 6, right? And 6 is also connected to Venus. And so I think what will really help us is that reconnection to love. So ultimately, I feel like it will be a beautiful journey, but of course, it's not just 2022, because we have the nodes in Taurus and Scorpio for 18 months, not just 2022, but it's something that we start now. And usually, you know how humans learn, I have to say that, is through contrast, which means that, first of all, we will feel very disconnected from love. So we can find the value and the true value in like simple things, in love, in pleasure, in music, in art, in what makes this life really meaningful here on this planet, again, which means that we first will probably be very disconnected from it. And that obviously actually brings us to the other topic we wanted to talk about, the beginning of 2022, which is definitely not an easy ride.
Yeah,
so that was a lot at once. Sorry, I am gonna pause for a minute.
Yes, that was beautiful. I loved every single second of it. I wanted to clarify for everyone listening, and I was thinking, so which dates? When is it shifting out of Gemini into Taurus, the North Node?
It depends on if you work with let me pull up an ephemeris. I work with the true nodes, so they're the true and the mean nodes, right? And I usually go with the true nodes, which is the exact calculation. And that must be, let me double check. It's not November. It's already this year. I don't know, that is January. Yeah, because the mean nodes shift on January 19th.
Okay. So the true is before the mean.
It's interesting, because I think at the same time, it's actually very interesting to see that, because at the same day that the nodes shift, Uranus stations. So that will be an interesting day to pay attention to. January 19, also because the same day also has a Pluto Sun conjunction. And whenever I pull up like transit charts like that, for me it's an Ingress chart, so you can almost see that this is the birth chart of the story of the nodes in Taurus and Scorpio for the next 18 months. So that's the birth chart, which then tells us how these whole 18 months, like what is the theme of these 18 months, right?
Yeah.
And so when we see, okay, there's a Sun-Pluto conjunction, it's intense transformation. That's what this nodal story, those 18 months will be intense transformation, period. Like there's no other way.
Because we've been stuck in such a like weird rut. And so of course it's not going to just be like a lift the lid and just breathe easy. Like there's so much that has been mixed up, you know, so many families divided over a simple, you know, not a simple, but a very complex, you know, concept with COVID and vaccine, not vaccine, people passing, people mourning, like all this mental health. Yeah, I totally see that that's going to be an intense transformation. Yeah.
And it will be, again, those 18 months will be very, I want to say personal, internal as well. Why? Because we have two planets that are, which is interesting, which two planets retrograde, and that's Venus, which will be the ruler of our destiny, the new one, right, is retrograde in Capricorn around that time. And Mercury is retrograde in Aquarius around that time, which was the past ruler. So it's interesting that both rulers at the same time are retrograde, right? So there are no coincidences. And again, the whenever a planet is stationed, so that's Uranus in that case, it puts a finger on that. It puts a pause on the planet. It's like stuck. And Uranus is known for its like unpredictable stuff anyways, and it can amplify it. And it also obviously is then it rules the nervous system, it rules electricity, so anxiousness, anxiety, shock, trauma, all of these things is ruled by Uranus. So I think, you know, again, like I cannot confirm it more. It's just like it will be 18 months of very intense transformation, and that's you really don't have to be a psychic, you know, or astrologist to know that anyways, because of the Pluto return that we will have in the US.
Yes. And let's talk about the Pluto return.
Yes. So the Pluto return, first of all, for those who don't understand the significance of it, it's that no person on this planet will ever have a Pluto return. Pluto is very slow. So it takes Pluto forever to transit a whole birth chart, and no one will ever be as old, right? Or that old in order to experience that. And so for the United States, we obviously have also birth charts for countries, and we have the birth chart of the United States, and the United States has Pluto at 27 degrees of Capricorn. And Pluto will hit 27 degrees of Capricorn 3 times next year, which is interesting. And I want to talk about that in a second, because since 2020, we work with interesting trinities when it comes to important transits. That's something I've observed. But the Pluto return is essentially what it means is that the soul of the country, right? Because Pluto, for me, I'm an evolutionary astrologer, represents the soul. So the Pluto in the birth chart represents the desire for your soul to transform something, right? To change something. And that's why you incarnated. Or to speak about a country, that's why the country was founded, right? The country was founded because something wanted to be transformed, something wanted to be shifted, something wanted to change, right? And so whenever Pluto is returning, Pluto makes sure like, hey, are we still on track with that assignment? So is the country actually built right now based on the values, based on the desire that it was originally founded, right? And we have to say and be really realistic here that that's probably not really the case in the United States, which is why everything Pluto destroys and transforms, and death, rebirth, transformation, right? All the Pluto topics, everything that is out of alignment with the soul. And so we will see a lot of things crumbling and crashing. And whenever Pluto is also a very slow moving planet, as I said. So it's not just that on those dates we will have something major happening. We can see that it was the buildup to this Pluto return, right? Which the buildup started, you know, in 2020 already. We were already in it. 2021, still in it. And now it's just a climax where it hits the exact spot, right? And it will hit the exact spot 3 times in 2022, in February 20, July 11, and December 28. So there will not really be a pause. And the reason for it hitting that spot 3 times is because Pluto will obviously also have a retrograde period, go back, right, to 26, 25 degrees, and then move over it again. This is fine little movement. And
Oh, wow.
what I was referring to point it to an end with the trinities, which I love trinities, because trinities for me always, it's the Holy Trinity, right? It's creation. So we're creating something new. And it's interesting, in 2020, we had this trinity of Pluto-Jupiter conjunctions. So Pluto and Jupiter were conjunct in 2020 3 times over the year as well. Then 2021 had those Saturn-Uranus squares, which are also known as very like tension, right, that transforms. And we've seen that, we've felt that.
To give an analogy, is it correct? Yeah. Like Saturn is the parent, the responsible parent, and Uranus is the rebellious child.
Yes. Yes. So also how I like to explain those vibrations is Saturn is the structures of the world, right? The matrix, if you want to say so. It's the rules, the laws, everything that we've built. And Uranus is the force that pushes through that. So we see through the veil, and what is behind Uranus is Neptune and Pluto. So Uranus helps us to see beyond Saturn, to reconnect to Pluto, the soul, and Neptune, the divine. And it's very shocking because, again, and that's why astrology is so amazing, because it will confront you with your belief systems. It will confront you with how is the world set up. And that's exactly what we experienced in 2021. That's also why we had so many like spiritual awakenings and like realizations and epiphanies and upgrades and whatever, ascension here, there, whatever, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's so amazing. It just confirms it. So with Pluto having such an intense effect these 3 times, it's going to be more collective, or it's going to be in the personal level?
Both. That's as if you was asked me 2020 and 2021, was that more collective or personal? I guess the answer everyone has the answer for themselves, because probably for everyone it felt like my whole life is upside down and flipped and I don't even know where to go from here. And then at the same time, that the same thing happened collectively. So of course, without, I always love to say that we live in a mirrorverse, right? It's all a reflection, which also means that the best way to heal or to help humanity or to help the world, to help rebuild the world, is you do your own work, which is also very much North Node and Taurus. Instead of being obsessed with other people's stuff, Scorpio, go into your own little cave and do your own work. Focus on your own self-worth. Focus on embodying law of yourself instead of calling everyone out and manipulating into, you need to be like this or you need to do this.
Yes, that's so true. And that is something that I think that people are already starting to talk about a lot. And it's almost like the energy is kind of pulling already very subtly, this concept of self-love, self-worth, and like filling up your cup. It seems like it's just, maybe it's the circles I'm attracting or what I'm talking about, but I see so many ways, even like moon rituals. Those are ways for you to be, loving yourself and really tuning into your soul and making sure that you're not out in the world feeling drained by somebody or manipulated, or yourself, like getting into the ego and manipulating and causing drama, like we all, think we don't do, but we love to do. Our ego does, at least.
And it makes a lot of sense also because, over the last 2 years, everyone changed so much that it's time now to reconnect to ourselves, like to build a relationship with ourselves. Like, who are we even now? We are not the same person as we were in 2020, January, or 2019 before COVID. Like, we are just not the same, and we have to take a minute, because the world was so chaotic and hectic and information overload with the North Node in Gemini, that we need to take a step back and say, okay, let me reflect on who am I, what am I, what are my new values, how do I go from here? And the same thing is going to happen for the world, right? Where it's like, oh my gosh, everything is kind of like upside down. Who are we and where do we go from here? And I think the country that will feel that the most is obviously the US, because it's like, I've said that from the beginning, the US will never be the US again that we think about right now. Like I see like there's a lot just changing, the way it's structured. I think that the different states will have their own like little moment of, oh my gosh, how do we go from here? Are we still part of it? So there will be just a lot of changing, and everyone will be in their own little space and think like, okay, what are our values? And they don't match with, for example, New York says, I don't match with the values of Texas, or California says, I don't match with the values of Florida. And so how can we still be one country? Either we find a compromise, or we say, okay, maybe this whole concept needs to be, reevaluated.
Yeah, so probably a lot of topics going back to the Constitution, making sure that, the country is still like the revisiting of, okay, why did we even, create this Constitution, going back to the actual literature of it. And yeah, to try and create the unity again. I'm sure it's going to be a lot of discussion probably on Capitol Hill. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's so cool. And so how in the world we had mentioned earlier, the North Node shifting changes the eclipses happening to with the moon and all of that. So can you talk us through some of that?
For those of you who don't really know what eclipses are basically supercharged new moons or full moon. So we have an eclipse whenever a new moon or full moon, which we have every 2 weeks, a new moon or a full moon, right? But eclipses are supercharged new moons because they are in a conjunction with the nodal axis, so with the nodes of destiny. It's also why I like to say eclipses are course corrections, right? They shift us and push us towards our destiny. And so everything that is out of alignment, again, will be a little bit like shapeshifted. And sometimes that's also why eclipses are so volatile and so like kind of Uranian, where it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't see that coming, right? Because it erases everything out of your field that is not in alignment. And so that's not something that happens from, in the lunar cycle necessarily, because we say that eclipses open a portal for the next 6 months until we have the next eclipse, so to speak, right? So we will have eclipses in Taurus and Scorpio, obviously. And actually the first eclipse with that axis in place is not with that axis, that's not the correct way to say it, but the first eclipse in Taurus and Scorpio we already have in November. It's a partial eclipse for that reason, because the nodes will still be in Gemini and Sag, right? But Scorpio season has one eclipse or one lunar, I think it's the full moon. Let me double check. I think it's the full moon in Taurus that we will have.
Because the sun is in Scorpio, and so
it can't be a new moon, obviously. You're right. Where is it?
Let's see.
Yes. So, oh no, we have actually two. So we have, we have 2 eclipses, but one of them is in Taurus, and that's the partial lunar eclipse on November 19, 2021, 2021, because that will have the nodes still at 1 degrees of Sag and Gemini, but the full moon will be at 27 degrees of Scorpio and Taurus, which means that it's very close to that nodal axis. And that's why it's also an eclipse, right? So that also sets the stage for 2021, because we are in this eclipse energy, and we already work intensely with that Taurus and Scorpio energy, also because that eclipse is also in a conjunction with Mercury and Mars. So it's already very fiery right there. Let's just put it like that. And so the next set of eclipses we will then have in Taurus season and in Scorpio season in 2022.
So that first one in November, is that going to be pulling out more in our shadows because it's got the Scorpio vibe?
Yes, Scorpio, anything, right? But then it's illuminating the belief systems in the shadow, so to speak. You can, if you take it really literally, right?
Yeah. Okay. That's good. And it's good to know, because then you won't be like bombarded with, because it's going to happen emotionally for you anyway. So if you know ahead of time, you can prepare. get your journal out, get your bubble bath, whatever you need to do, get some meditations going to really actually,
self-love, a lot of self-love.
Self-love, and work through it rather than be hit by it. You can be like, okay, I'm ready, let's do this. And get your flashlight, pull out the shadow from the closet and all that stuff. Yeah.
And then in 2022, the eclipses, just to mention them, we will have 4. We have on April 30th, we have a Taurus eclipse, which is very interesting actually, because it's at 10 degrees of Taurus. And it's a solar eclipse. Solar eclipses are usually more intense because it's the sun illuminating the North Node, and it's a new moon essentially, right? It's a new moon, which means the sun, the moon are together, the North Node is together. And what's special about this eclipse, in my observation, are a few things actually. When I look at this chart, I'm like, how do we survive this? Just kidding. No, we survive anything.
We're stronger than we think.
It's at 10 degrees. And if you think back of what I said about the ingress charts of the nodes, January 19, Uranus stationed on that day at 10 degrees of Taurus. And that's where you have the first eclipse, which is not a coincidence, same degree. And
on the same
that's
day?
No, it's April 30th.
Yeah, in April. Okay, got it.
And the eclipse is also in a conjunction with Uranus. So we see Uranus already kind of gave us a precursor, and then he's like, okay, and now here I am. And that eclipse also has a Venus-Jupiter conjunction, which is pretty interesting because that can save our ass, I feel like, a little bit, the Venus-Jupiter conjunction with Neptune. But again, it brings us back to, in order to survive, we have to just like really like love has to be the answer, and like self-care, and like it's a stellium in Pisces that day. I feel like that's, it tells us enough that we are soul incarnate in physical body, Taurus, right? Soul, Pisces, and we have to kind of like reconnect to that, not get lost in the outside world. And of course, when I say that, it's a portal, quote unquote, that opens for the next 6 months. So it's not like that on April 30th, we will have that huge realization, but we know where it's going. Speaking about transits.
And I don't know why this is popping in my head. Do you think that there will be also some conflicts, let's say in certain friendships, relationships that have been on the different sides throughout 2020 and 2021, kind of mending and finding that love to be able to move forward together? It's either the together love or they just split and go their separate ways. Or is that not correct in thinking?
I love that you bring that up too, because I mean, another aspect of Scorpio is also codependency and toxic merging. This could be, right? And so letting go of a lot of like toxic codependency is more so also obviously Libra, right? But it's more like this merging where you feel like you need to own that person, like this possessiveness in a way, this manipulation and controlling, mind control, ego struggles, power struggles, all of that. And we want to move away from that. And I hate to say it in a way, but just last night I had a conversation about it. It's sometimes you have to realize that toxic person can also be a family member that has like these energetic cords attached to you from like very early on. And how can you cut those cords in order to free yourself as well? I think there will be a lot about that. And then also connecting to spirit and the divine, and maybe understanding, well, it's a soul contract that I have with that person, right? And so forgiveness and peace and love for the lesson, and not to hold a grudge or not to make it mean something about your self-worth. So yes, I mean, I feel like the last 2 years were all about relationships as well. Everything is about relationships, the relationship we have to the world, right? To everything, to ourselves, to the world. And I do feel like because we change so much, everyone changes or changed. Of course, the people we surround ourselves with, they change. And to have peace in that too, like even if it's, Scorpio is also marriage. If it means that the divorce rate will increase maybe, right? A lot of people need to let go of those old bonds because they are just not vibrationally not compatible anymore. And it doesn't mean that the other person is wrong or you are wrong. It's just that your assignment is over because it's a new chapter and territory that we step in.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I definitely see that. Yeah, I see that. So the energy will kind of bring the bravery to be able to do those hard, difficult choices, but also bringing that love to sever the cords in a loving way. Yeah, and to mend them. Yeah.
And one thing that obviously it's kind of like the elephant in the room, I guess, since 2020, but now will be amplified. We have to talk about a financial system a little bit, at least. I'm not going to give too many like predictions. Obviously, I'm not a financial advisor, but I am very fascinated by the movements of, the crypto market. For example, I analyze Bitcoin and Ethereum charts, and just like, it's very fascinating to see how those markets, or like those energies, have, I guess, skyrocketed with like everything that is crumbling at the same time. So it's like, while the world is crashing, they are like kind of elevating, and we can definitely see that this will probably increase, also because we can, Pluto in the US chart is in the second house, right? Pluto Capricorn second house. And so what transforms, or what shifts, what has to die in a way, you can see, is the second house of money in the US. So there will be also a lot of transformation and shifts in the way we run our finances, the way we know finances in the US. Because, I mean, again, you don't have to be a psychic or a conspiracy theorist to know that there's something weird about the financial system also in the US. They keep printing money. A lot of people just live on loans and live on printed money. It's all kind of like this illusion bubble. And then there's at the same time so much poverty and just so much imbalances, and Pluto wants to erase all of that. And that's also a shadow that we probably, the South Nodes will bring to the surface, because Scorpio also rules other people's money. So where does the US maybe have money from other countries? Like, where are the strings attached to other things? And I don't want to say that the US is like the cause of everything, because it's a whole network of the financial network, which is not just the US, it's all over the world. So also other countries will obviously be involved, right? And a lot of things will come to the surface where we didn't even know that there are strings from one country to the next country, that they work together. There's stuff going on with finances. What is even our money, and what are they doing with our money, right? So there will be a lot about those kind of conversations, which then pushes people towards North Node and Taurus, right? How can I be more self-sustainable? How can I not be codependent, South Node and Scorpio, to a system when it comes to my money? I want to take care of my own money. A Taurus person would be like, I get my money off the bank and have it in my fucking suitcase at home, because I don't trust them, right?
Right.
I only trust myself, and I want to be safe. Yes, I want to be safe.
Yeah. So I'm sure Capricorns have a bit of that too.
That's true. Yeah, right? Capricorn moon being here. But that's why we will have also an increase, obviously, in my opinion and observation, in cryptocurrency, because it gives people the opportunity to decentralize money and to not be dependent, to have more opportunities.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. And for me, I'm even afraid of that, because I feel like it's not real money. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. And
that's funny that you say that, because that's again another belief system that we want to debunk, because the money on your bank, is that real money? It doesn't even exist. It's a number. It's not real money.
Right. All the money is not real money. And I guess I'd have to research it. If you can withdraw the crypto into cash, then I guess that would be considered real money. Just like if the number in the bank, if you can withdraw it to cash, then it's.
But then you go with cash again. Then you go with the money system again, and not the crypto, right?
Right.
So you still, and it's like similar. I the way I grew up, I was born and raised in Germany, and I remember so vividly when we had the transition from Deutsche Mark, right, from Mark to euros, and how the first, I guess, 3 years, everyone was converting still to Mark, which didn't make sense. It doesn't exist anymore. Like, why do you try to recalculate into euros instead of adapting to a new system? So the future here is more so to say, okay, then I'm buying in Bitcoin, I'm thinking in Bitcoin. And maybe that's, where my traveling experience also comes very handy for me, because then I'm not always recalculating how much would that be in euros. At some point you adapt to, I'm in Dubai and here's dirhams, right? Or I'm in the US, well, it's dollars. I don't have to, put effort and work in my brain and always recalculate it into a different currency. It's just another currency.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm excited to see how that all pans out. I love it. Yeah, because Venus does rule the money. So it's going to be a lot.
And again, Uranus and Taurus, Uranus is also technology, right?
Mm-hmm.
Future innovation.
Right.
So in Taurus, of course, innovation when it comes to finances.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. So breaking down, the Pluto is going to be breaking down our constructs and our beliefs on all that and shifting it. Yeah. Like to be more of a universal versus this country has this and this country has that.
Yeah. Exactly.
Ooh, I love it. Feels very futuristic. Like,
it is very
movies.
alien.
Yes. I love it.
Which also, we can address the fact that Saturn will slowly close its time in Aquarius next year, right? So we'll still be in Aquarius for the whole year, I believe, and then obviously enter Pisces towards 2023. And so
what's that? What does that mean?
It will teach us a lot about technology, about innovation, obviously community, future thinking. So there will be a lot about that too. Obviously, up until this point, what we definitely felt with Saturn in Aquarius was the restriction that Saturn sometimes brings relative to community into the future, but only to teach us what we actually want to bring into the future, right? Saturn always restricts things and deprives us of things. So we learn the lesson and the value of it. So it helps us mature as well. I love Saturn.
Appreciate what we missed. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love Saturn too. It helped me get out of a horrible situation. Absolutely. So then when it moves into Pisces, now how is Saturn going to be helping us with its Pisces energy?
It will be interesting because a lot of people have to learn a lot about their faith and their spiritual connection, their spiritual existence here on this planet. Obviously, around that time, we will have other things. Jupiter will then also be in Aries, and it will be a whole different dynamic. The nodes will also slowly shift into Aries and Libra. So that will be a whole different vibration, which will then be more a topic of 2023, I think.
Oh, okay. So 2022, Saturn is still going to be in Aquarius.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Ooh, that's exciting. That's so great. Oh my gosh, there's so much here. Everyone's probably minds are like blown and they have to listen to this over and over again. So make sure that we're doing that. Anything else before we close out? And I wanted to ask you some rapid fire questions about you personally.
Before we close out, I think, because everything what I just said does definitely not sound like a unicorn, right? And I do actually feel that the vibration of 2022 is more heavy than what we've experienced in 2021 and 2022, but it won't feel like that. And that's just what I intuitively feel. And the reason for it is because I see that 2021 especially was a training camp for us, because there were so many fluctuations and tension and things and ups and downs, and we are used to that now. So it won't feel necessarily as heavy, because shadow work, again, I said it before, we've done that before. Shadows being exposed in public, we've seen that before, right? So I don't think that it will be as shocking. And that's the beautiful way of, how the universe supports us, because we were prepared for this moment of, let's say the country of the US and like everything, all the consequences crumbling and crashing. It won't feel like this intense shock for most people, not for everyone, because not everyone, did some work the last 2 years.
Depending on their reality and their consciousness, yes.
Exactly. But I think the people that listen to this episode, they will get what I mean. We are, and I invite everyone to even reflect on that, to take a moment and realize, I do that so often, where I'm like, wow, in the past, I would have freaked out in that moment. but now I have such a deep sense of faith and trust, and I know that this will pass. So it's like very calming in a way, where you can sit in the storm and you're like, I know this is happening for something greater, something better, something bigger. And I feel like we have been reconnected to that faith during those crazy transits that we already survived. We have to witness that too and celebrate ourselves, right? And even that in itself can be very North Node and Taurus. Like, I love myself so fucking much and my body especially, because one thing that we definitely don't pay attention to is the body carries you through everything, right? The body makes sure that your heart beats, that you breathe, that you digest. While you go through your crazy transformation, the body is just your ally, supporting you in the background, being like, okay, I make sure that you function somehow. I guess not all the time, because the body also has to, we went through a lot of like physical upgrades as well, I want to say so, and it will continue. So sometimes we are exhausted, ascension symptoms, all of that, right? But yeah, I just think like it's very good to take a moment of self-care and self-honoring for what we've already accomplished. It's actually mind-blowing.
Yeah, I love that. That's beautiful. It is important to make sure that we're affirming that support. That is such a Taurus energy. That just,
yes.
Thank you. Pull up affirmations that you love. You know what I'm starting to really be called to lean into every morning is to affirm all of my chakras, and then like call in my spirit guides as I'm whatever I'm doing in the morning, but making sure I take that time to do that. Yes. Which I feel like really will help people do some type of self-love practice. Yeah, to absolutely revisit that and affirm yourself. So beautiful. This has been so amazing, and I really appreciate you sharing all of this with us, Kathy. And before I let you leave, I wanted to ask you a few fun questions about you. So what is your favorite food?
Oh my gosh, it's asking me for what's my favorite child, right? I have a massive sweet tooth, so I love I would always eat any time of the day ice cream. I love ice cream, but then at the same time, I love very exotic and just like, I love trying new things. So, and I love like tapas and like a lot of like different things where you can have little bite size and try a lot of different cuisines. I think you would ask me about my favorite situation, it would be a buffet, and it's like a traveling through all the countries and all different cultures and their food. You know, I love Indian and Italian and then, yeah, all of the different things. Yeah.
I love that. The adventure of the mouth. Yes.
Exactly.
And what is your favorite music?
I really, especially in 2021, found my love for mantras, especially like chanting mantras. And everything that has a deeper meaning. So a lot of lyrics, right? I work best with like, if there's a deep meaning in the song, it just like carries you away. I love that. And I also am a very big advocate and fan of binaural beats any time of the day. Yeah,
those are so cool. I downloaded this Moonly app, by the way. I don't know if you've found Moonly, but it has like every day, it's Vedic, more of astrology, but every day is ruled by a certain planet, and they put on this music. So every day has a different like kind of tonal music. And today's music was very Native American chanting with the drums. And it was like, oh my gosh, I love this. So I completely relate to you. Yeah.
Awesome.
And then what is the book on your nightstand, or what's your current book you're reading?
I don't read, first of all, because I'm very auditive. So I listen. I have 5 million audiobooks, so it's not like I'm not educating myself.
Yes, but so which one are you listening to now?
I have a few actually. I really love right now the recovery book, Russell Brand's Recovery. I think it's really fascinating. I also have a private client. She is in, Alcohol Anonymous. And so I just wanted to know what it's all about. I love all the Paul Selig books. So Beyond the Known, I Am Word, Alchemy, all of that. I love a lot of like subconscious books, Electric Body. I mean, so many different ones. I also that's one book that I only were able to get as a Kindle version because there's no audiobook. And that's the Power of Shakti. So I'm very interested in like Kundalini and life force energy, a lot of like Indian and Hindu cultures and like the chakra system and how to manifest reality. Oh yeah, and Brian Scott's Reality Revolution. It's a book as well. Very good. Yeah. And Greg Brain's book. I mean, so many.
Can you repeat that one? It was Brian Scott.
Brian Scott. Is
yeah.
it? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, yeah, Brian Scott. Yeah.
Awesome. Oh, those are so cool. Those like you have a wealth of amazing books there. I think you can go through books a lot faster with audio too. One of my little ones were babies. That's all I did was audio because I'm like, I don't have time to sit down and read.
And I always listen to everything in double speed too. So it's
really?
Yeah.
Oh yes, very auditory, a learner.
My third house is ruled by Aquarius, so I just download the frequency, I guess.
yes, through the air. It's an air sign. What is your favorite nature spot?
The beach and sunsets.
So gorgeous. They're the best.
I love a good jungle too, but I just love the water and sunsets. It's just, yeah.
So a jungle right up to a beach would be like your ultimate favorite.
Probably, yes.
Yes.
So which is why Bali is still on my list, but we have to see how the traveling situation is going with there. Right. But yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. Well, thank you so much for spending time with me and providing all this amazing information to the Thriving Intuitive audience. We really appreciate you. Make sure that you're following her over on Instagram at magic_Kathy_official. And anything else that you have to provide. You have clients that you help as well, do private readings and all that. So check her out. Thank you again for being here. I really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. It was my pleasure to shine a light on 2022. And yeah, if anyone needs support, again, like the forecast will definitely guide you through next year as well. I also have a podcast where I share the energy and what's going on. And of course, whenever you need additional support, I do readings. And yeah, you can always reach out on Instagram. I love to have a personal contact with you first, but you can also obviously just check all of my links and book in a session. But yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I love to connect with everyone, even if it's not for reading, just in general, because I think if the more we can come together, the better, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. Thank you.
Thank you.